Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell, joined by attorney Stephen Jessup, and we're going to talk about one of our cases against Guardian and Berkshire Life and a long-term disability insurance claim. And in these videos, we like to talk about how you were able to help the client, the background and history of the particular claim, and then provide some tips for people who may have a Guardian or Berkshire Life long-term disability insurance claim. So let's talk a little bit first about the claimant's history in this policy and also the policy language.
Yeah, so a client is an orthopedic surgeon. At the time he contacted our office looking into filing a claim, he was only 37, so very young, early on in his career. The medical condition that was impacting his ability to perform surgery was ankylosing spondylitis, so bad back problems and a lot of pain and discomfort. He reached out to us because he was at a crossroads. He wasn't sure where it was going. His condition was making it harder and harder to perform, some of the more physically intensive surgeries. But he also didn't want to necessarily give up the practice of medicine. He was still young in the career, spent a lot of time to get to that point. So initially was looking for options and answers under his policies.
So he was coming to you to say, hey, how can you guys help me with the application process? How common is that for doctors, business professionals, really anyone in any occupation to seek the assistance of an attorney to help them apply for long-term disability benefits?
From my experience, it's relatively common. Even if it's just sometimes a call and they want to discuss the policy, if they have something, to try to figure out what their options are to understand that policy better. Because when you buy it from an agent, the agent kind of, tells you what language you should buy, what riders you should buy, things like that. But when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of how Guardian is going to look at your disability claim, it's much different than any conversation you would have with an agent previously.
And a lot of law firms basically only handle denials, appeals, lawsuits, and the long-term disability insurance claims. Why do you think it's so important for a claimant to have an attorney right out of the box to help them apply for disability benefits?
Well, with Guardian, if they're coming to you with a denial or anything even leaning towards a denial, it's really late in the game. So a lot of information has already been passed back and forth, and we are now in a situation where we're stuck with the facts as we find them, as opposed to when someone contacts us to assist in the application. We understand what's Guardian going to look for, what could be some problems in this claim, where there could be some hiccups, and then try to avoid those roadblocks and try to smooth everything out. So if you have your claim strong from the get-go and you're able to see where problems may be down the road and address those early, you hopefully avoid all those problems. Whereas, if you contact us later, a lot of information's already been passed and can be very hard. And in my experience dealing with Guardian, if Guardian has already rendered a decision that you're not disabled or that they're having a hard time finding support for disability, it can be very, very difficult at that point to get involved and try to show them where they're wrong, because they will do, very thorough reviews.
I also look at, to try to make it in simple terms, I look at the application process as writing the script for a movie or a play, because by the time the disability company gets the file, they're already looking back at a history. So you could look at it as if you're the person who's going to watch the movie. But instead here, you get the opportunity to create the script for the movie and put it all together and then deliver it to Guardian. And you can shape how it's going to go. Because if you come to a lawyer later on because you're having issues, we already have to go back and watch the movie because it's done already. We can't change it. Now we can change things moving forward and help fill in the holes and improve and provide what Guardian thinks is missing, but you're 100 times more, better off to have the help up front so that you can dot all your I's, cross all your T's, use the benefit of our experience for what we know exactly that Guardian's looking for. So in this particular case, knowing what you had, was the client in a situation where he was going to give up his career and seek a total disability claim, or what was the situation?
And so initially he wanted to, a doctor's recommendation, even though I think the doctors were at the point, his doctors would have supported him going out on total disability. He didn't want to do that, and his policy, like a lot of doctors and a lot of people who have Guardian policies in general, had residual or partial disability. So he wanted to look into that, reduce the amount of days he was going in, the number and types of procedures, because he, like I said, he didn't want to go on disability, he wanted to continue working. So when we were initially setting forth the claim, we were doing from a standpoint of a partial disability.
And what's the difference between partial versus total disability?
So total under his policy, it's the inability to perform, the duties of your occupation. So here's an orthopedic surgeon. And then he even had the true own occupation style definition that would have allowed him to work in some other, area of medicine or whatnot and still be entitled to total disability. But for all intents and purposes, you're not working, in his case, as an orthopedic surgeon. And then the partial residual is you're, performing some of the material and substantial duties of the job, but you're experiencing, in his case, I think it was a 15% loss of income. And then when you have that loss of income, there's a proportionate amount of money that the insurance company pays.
As an orthopedic surgeon, could he have had the option to stop performing surgery, become an internal medicine doctor, or a rheumatologist, some kind of non-surgeon type medical doctor, and have collected total disability?
Yes, under his policies, yes, but it's also a matter of, like he said, I'm an orthopedic surgeon, it's what I do, I love surgery. Even if he wanted to go in internal medicine to kind of retrain and try to establish a practice, all that type of stuff, it just wasn't something that he was interested in, even though it was available. And we've represented, doctors and dentists and other professionals who've done that. They found another occupation to go into.
What about his medical condition and being so young? Is that something that you were concerned that Guardian was going to challenge? And what evidence did you need in order to support his claim?
Well, one of the first things I wanted to look into, because it is an inflammatory arthritis condition that can start early on, I wanted to make sure that the application to get the policy itself wasn't going to be a concern about, did he not, identify that he had issues or sought treatment. So once we got around the idea that he, for the actual getting the policy, that there wouldn't be concerns that they would try to say, well, you didn't tell us you had treated for this condition. Had we known, we wouldn't have written the policy. So that wasn't so much of a problem. Once that was out, then it was a matter of really the condition itself, which is becoming, I think, more prevalent. A couple years ago, most people like, what's this? And now you can see, commercials for medications for it. So it was more a matter of the objective medical evidence that could be provided to show where the problems were in relation to the nature of work he did. Had he been an internal medicine doctor or something that didn't require surgery, let alone the types of surgery he was doing, which are very, very physical, I think it's a much harder claim. In his situation, one of the hallmarks anytime with the surgeon and even like a dentist or something is the idea of patient safety. Because if you are physically unable to do something or something happens during the course of a surgery, it's not just you, it's also the safety of the patient. So his objective medical evidence, his doctor support was phenomenal. And I think part of just, him, because, Guardian likes to do initial phone interviews and talk and, we did all that stuff. He comes off as a guy that doesn't want to be here, nothing to hide. His claim was in a lot of ways straightforward. The medical evidence was there, no desire to stop working, but it was more of a medical necessity at a point to wait and see what would happen.
And I know he's been a client for many years, and how do you continue to help protect his benefits moving forward?
Yeah, and it's transition. This is, I think, something that's very important for people to understand. If you do have a Guardian policy, he went from partial, then he did have a period of total disability. During that time, he had gotten some surgery that had helped alleviate some problems and allowed him to then return back to the practice and start doing some surgeries again. So each month now, while he's continuing to work and do surgeries, Guardian sends out their requests for the financials, pay stubs, production reports, all that type of stuff. The periodic attending physician statement, claimant statements. So like we've said, on total disability, there's a lot less information the insurance company looks for. On these residual partial disability, there's a lot more reporting every month because your monthly benefit is based on your earnings. So every month, Guardian is taking a look at everything in his file.
All right, so you are submitting, whether it's profit and loss statements, his production code reports every month, and his pay stubs to help him continue to get paid every month.
Yeah.
Well, this was another example of a doctor that you helped, obviously from the inception through claim handling, and continue to protect his benefits. And how many years has it been on this particular claim already?
Geez, I would want to say maybe 5 years now.
Okay.
5 years now.
And this is a claimant who's going to keep trying to work as long as he can, and eventually he may end up being a total disability candidate. But when you're so young, and this was his passion his whole life, he wasn't ready to give it up. And I know doctors have told him, you probably should stop, but he's continuing because he's passionate about it and thinks he can still safely do it. And that's the bottom line. When he gets to the point where he feels that he's obviously a potential danger, he's going to have to stop.
You know, and that's right, because he had said that his big impetus was he was worried about the patient. He's like, I can take the wear and tear on me. You know, he'll take that. But when it does get to that point of patient safety, that's when, you know, he always drew the line. And that's why he had to give up a lot of the surgeries he was doing.
Well, if you're somebody who has a Guardian or a Berkshire Life disability insurance policy, feel free to reach out to myself, Stephen, or any of our disability insurance lawyers. We'd love to immediately provide you with a free initial phone consultation, and no matter where you live in the country, we're available to assist you. Hi, I'm Gregory Dell, the managing attorney of Dell Disability Lawyers, and I hope you find the video you just watched helpful. We put these videos out all of the time, and we'd love if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel. Beyond our videos on our YouTube channel, we also have lots of information available on our website at diattorney.com, and we encourage you to come to our website. The goal is that we want you to be educated about the disability insurance process, and when you get to our website, you'll see that we have information all about your specific disability insurance company, your occupation, and your medical condition. And we've designed our website such that you can easily search our website to find things that you may specifically be looking for. Now, at our website, we have thousands and thousands of pages of information, hundreds of videos that you can search, plus we're building a section of reviews of all the disability insurance companies, and we have the Ask Our Lawyer section where you can go ahead and ask us any questions that you may have. Now, we realize that you may not need us right now, but you may need us in the future to help you with your disability claim, and we think one of the best ways to keep in touch is by clicking the button below and subscribing to our channel. And most importantly, again, no matter where you live in the country, we're always available. Just go ahead and give us a call. We're happy to discuss your claim and let you know immediately if we can help you.